set.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm very excited to talk to you today. You also, I think, bear no introduction. Aisha Shehu. I think I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Last name.
Shehu Ansel.
Is it, how do you pronounce your last name?
Shehu Ansel.
Shehu. Okay, so not Shu, Shehu. Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize for that. You, and I think a lot of people will know you, especially people who have this tarot deck, the tarot scholar, which is a golden dawn based deck on color scales. And that's how I got to know who you are, because there was not only an introductory card in the box,
Yes.
but the booklet was also scented by the rose secret perfume that you have, that was mixed and created specifically for almost as in devotion to the golden dawn, which is beautiful.
Yes,
And I keep checking your website to see when that perfume is going to be back in stock, because I can't wait.
I can give you an update on that later on if you wish.
Yeah, I can't wait to get. But Aisha is, in my opinion, for those who don't know you, you are an esoteric alchemist when it comes to senses. This is how I would definitely describe you. So to start off, how did this, and I have this the perfume that you do have available right now. This is based on the star in tarot. Just everything about it, from aesthetics to packaging, it carries such an elegance and such opulence, which is, I think, parallels exactly how I also perceive you. But how did this got married with tarot? How did this started?
Well, it's quite an interesting story. It happened by magic, really. Like, these things happen, they just take on a life, and they just appear. And when they've arrived, you're like, well, of course, it makes sense. Why wouldn't I do this? Absolutely, this is perfect. So to start with the Vita Toile scent, it was made for this, for the Leonora Carrington deck. So this was the first project that I basically created for the Carrington deck for Fulgur Press, because I'm co-director of Fulgur Press, and the founder and managing director is my husband.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yes, so that's how it started. We were just, because we talk about work every day. I have my own job that I do, my day job that I do, which is in translation. So nothing to do with this. This is like an addition. So we were talking about work, as we do very often, and we were just having this conversation about this project and the Carrington deck, which was quite substantial. There were 3 different decks. There was this edition here. There was the white box, and then there was the black one, so the various degrees, and there was a book for each deck. So the deck was pretty much the center piece of the project. The book was illustrating the deck and not the other way around, you see. So we thought, oh, what can we do? And we just thought about, I can't even tell you how, the idea came. It just appeared, and we thought, yes, of course, a scent, a talismanic fragrance for the deck, just for the deck, something that tells people a little bit extra information about the artist and the deck, all rolled into one. So I did research. It took me about 3 months, and I came up with 7 different samples. I thought, okay, I have the notes down. Now I just need to tweak the notes and the proportions. And believe it or not, the first one I did ended up being the one that is now Vita Toile. That was the favorite.
So this is Leonora,
and that was it. Yes,
it is beautiful. It has so much depth to it. It feels very layered, and when I put it on my skin, it shifts throughout the day as I wear it. It's very, very beautiful.
that's very interesting because to give you a little, without telling you how I obviously made it, but I can tell you how what served as inspiration for me, because it was this card, the star card, not any card, but this one specifically. And this appeared on the book. So I thought it makes sense to be consistent, you know, to marry everything together. And they are 8 stars on the card. So that's where the name comes from.
And there's probably 8 notes. Did you also use 8 notes?
No, I didn't use 8 notes. I kept it simpler than that because I thought it's going to be too complicated and too expensive to use 8 notes. But is the card number 17? So the other source of inspiration was, I don't know if you've read this book, is Arcane 17 by André Breton. And there is a beautiful passage. This is the French edition. I don't think it's ever been translated. But there is a passage in this book where he describes the card. He doesn't say this is the card, let me talk to you about it, but he talks about the figurine in the middle. And he talks about the night scene in the card, and how it's a night of enchantment and magic when the spirits come out to play. And he talks about this naked woman, and what he's really talking about is his wife. It's like a love letter to his wife. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have to put some of this in the perfume. And it's interesting because you just mentioned the scent changes during the day, throughout the day. And I think that's down to the jasmine, which is a night blooming flower. So it could be that, you know, this is why it kind of changes.
As you get closer to the evening, you maybe perhaps even pick up more of that. Why the star? Why not high priestess or strength or judgment or death card? What is it about the star that was so adamant to come through?
I think this one was I felt was appropriate because of what it represented, you know, the enchantment, the flow of feminine energy. I thought that suits Carrington really well. So it makes sense to pick this card. It just has that feminine energy, you know, and that kind of timelessness and that sense of mystery. So that's how I ended up picking this card for that particular deck. And that was it. Yeah.
I love that.
Once I picked it, it was everything just clicked into place.
Yeah. I missed out on that print of the deck, but a few months ago, my husband traveled to Portland and he went to his friend who manages a bookstore. And the friend said, and the friend knows I'm into tarot. And he said, I have the book for your wife. And it's actually a book of Leonora Carrington and the tarot deck. So I have the book.
Okay.
I don't have the deck, but I have the book. And she seems like a very mystical and very depthful person as well. So
oh, yes. Absolutely.
And for this one, now it's so this was first.
Yes, that was the first one.
And then came this, and there's a little bit of departure here from focusing on one particular tarot card versus we're going to focus on an overreaching umbrella of the system under which this deck is based on. How did that happen? And
this one was a little bit, yes, you're right, it's a little bit of a departure because although I have to say I did pull a card, a totally random card for this deck, and the one I pulled was this one, which is the Empress.
Yes.
I pulled out the Empress, and the reason why I wanted to pull a card, aside from the fact that it's a deck and I should really pull the cards before I start working on the scent, is because I used correspondences and I wanted something. I wanted like a something that I could hang on to, like an anchor, you know, and not just fish ideas out of nowhere.
Yeah.
it's easier for me to have something to start with, and then my mind can wander and I can start the process of doing research and doing the work and see what works and what doesn't. So that was the starting point. The other thing that's really interesting about Eiffel Cahoon is obviously her relationship with the Order of the Golden Dawn. And it's another book, because I also always use books for my fragrances. And Sword of Wisdom, I don't know if you have this one. And I don't know if you remember the poem right at the end of the book.
No.
It's the one that's called, that she wrote, and she called it the Elegy on the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Mm.
So this is her love letter to the Golden Dawn, because she never managed to become a member, but she really tried. But in a way, she paid homage to it anyway through her work, because I mean, it's color everywhere. And then just to read you the last paragraph of the poem, she says, "Alas, for all her joys and pains, all her sincerity and pose, her quested treasure still remains the perfume of a secret rose."
Oh,
So there's the name
there
of
we
the
go.
perfume.
Yeah.
So, so
Mm.
as you can guess, the base note, or actually the heart note for this perfume, is the rose. So that was the starting point. The poem that she wrote about the Golden Dawn, the cards that I pulled, which has the pink color, which is quite, present,
Mhm.
which gave me the notes to start with. So again, it all clicked into place, and
Mm.
it gave me the impression that I was on the right path to
Yeah.
get started.
And of course, we have the rose in the back of the classic Rose stack. So and rose is so symbolically important to the stack. So it's all kind of put together and coming in together.
And to the Golden Dawn, and the order used scent was very, very important. Unfortunately, there's very little that you can find, very little information. But it was very important to the order. So this one was harder to work with, because rose, there are so many different kinds of essential oils. They are very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very easy to find one of good quality, but I did find one in the end. I had to rework the formula, and I made a few changes. And for this one, I can give you a little insight into what else has gone in the perfume. I've used frangipani essential oil. And the reason why I use this, apart from the fact that it goes very well with rose, it's also a heart note. It's the flower is a symbol of the tree of life. Again, we have that connection with the Golden Dawn, etc. So it was a good thing to add, I think, anyway. And yeah.
I love that. I love how this particular elements all come together in intuitive but also synchronistic ways, and how you're not just intuitively creating a fragrance, but you're also being mindful of correspondences and the story behind it. It's like it's really, really important to you. How do you see that relationship in general between a scent, whether it is perfume or just a scent of a flower, and the stories we tell ourselves?
So are we talking about things that have been created, since they have been created, or things that we just yeah? Well, I think it's quite essential. Our sense of smell is the only sense that is directly connected to that part of the brain where memories and emotions live. Is the only sense that is why we can smell something and we are immediately taken back to that time, you know, and that place that we probably forgot. You know, we don't have photos of it. We probably don't have a name for the place or the memory, but our brain knows because it's that very, very old part of the brain that we've had since we lived in, you know, caves or whatever, you know. So it's very primal. It's very primal, and it's very intimate, and it's very personal. Um, I've had people that I've never met who've smelled my perfume and said, "Oh my goodness, I don't know what you've put in it, but it's reminded me of my grandmother
Mm.
and the perfume she used to wear when I was a child." So it's not a smell that they've experienced, you know, in recent times. It's something that's just been anchored and stored
Yeah.
away in their memory for and laid there dormant, pretty much. I think that's why I like the perfume to tell a story and to be about the objects, and not just the object, but the artist that's created the object, because that too is personal. I mean, they've poured so much of themselves in it. So I think the perfume, any perfume, should reflect that. You know, it might be not be our personal story, but something else. You know, the story of the place, the story of the plants,
Mm.
you know, the
Mm.
location where it grew. You know, the
Yeah.
country, the sun under which it grew. It could. I mean, there's so much to explore. It's a
Yeah.
rich kind of art form, really. You know?
It makes me think of signature, the idea of signature scents, and the
Mm,
scent that a person resonates with. And I think some people tend to have a signature scent, and some people tend to have multiple signature scents. But it makes me think of people who do have one signature scent. And for example, let's say this is my signature scent, and there's also so much of you in this perfume.
mm,
There's so much of Leonore in this perfume, and there's so much of the history and alchemy of star card in this perfume.
mm,
So it makes me then think and ponder the similarities and correspondences I have as an individual with you and Leonora
mm.
and Teroa. So I think that makes it very, very interesting to ponder. Do you have a signature scent yourself?
I used to when I was very young. My first perfume, it was a very cheap perfume that I bought in a supermarket for a few pennies, but I loved it and I used to wear it every day. That was my little ritual. I don't wear perfume every day now, but I used to. Now I'm a little bit more mindful of what I wear and when and why.
Mm-hmm.
And that perfume had vanilla, and for some reason, well, I think I know why. I think I had just moved from Nigeria, where I grew up, to France, and I think that exotic scent was just something of my childhood. You know, I think that's why I loved it so much and why I wore it for so long. And after that, I just grew up a bit, and I thought it's too sweet and it's too sickly. I mean, it's nice, but it's not really me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I started wearing musk, just musk, nothing else mixed with it, just pure musk.
Interesting.
Um, and that was probably to do with coming of age and growing into a young woman, etc., as you do. You start exploring and learning about yourself. These days, I only wear my own perfumes. So I made a full moon perfume,
Mm.
which I wear on certain days, obviously. The rest of the time is only Nuit Étoile and La Rose Secrète, and I don't wear anything else. And I think that's probably how it's going to be. I just need to add more perfumes to my collection.
Yeah, I
So
love
I
that.
have a few more to choose.
Yeah.
Because I do like to take into account, you know, the season, the time of day. I think perfumes made just for nighttime can be quite interesting. There are perfumes that you can, you know, that you can wear, but you can also anoint your lovers or partners with. I think that's quite
Mhm.
a nice idea. And perfumes just to suit your moods, you know, if you are feeling a bit down, something with lavender or violets is very comforting. If you are a little bit distressed, again, you might want something that's a little bit more grounded and earthy just to pull you back
Mhm.
down. Something with patchouli, you know, something very spiritual, just to uplift your spirits.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, it's a very exciting art form for me, and
I
there's so
know
much you can do, you know.
it's very interesting, and I have an intuitive feeling you have no plan of creating a perfume for each of the majors. It just doesn't strike me that that's your goal, or is it?
No, I think
Yeah.
I will. There's another tarot perfume. It won't be the next one. It will be whenever. But there's one that I would like to make. Again, it will be about a female artist who died a while ago, and she's not an esoteric or an occult or anything like that. She didn't identify as that at all. But she did that particular piece of work, which I think is very interesting. And I'd like to make a perfume for that.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I'll keep it a mystery for now.
So if you in tarot in majors, das is my card. Not only is it, I'm a Scorpio, so I identify with it, even though my birth card would be the star.
Mm.
But I love the desk card, and I especially love the desk card in the Zoe stacks, particularly because it's so, oh, it's right there on the top. Go figure. So if you were
Oh,
to, yeah, have you you are you obviously familiar with tarot?
I don't know this one. Which deck is it? Did you say?
This is the Aleister Crowley Zoes.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I don't have it. I've got a few of them, but I don't have that one, so I'm not that familiar with it.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is one of my favorite desk cards. So if you were to create a perfume for this card, and thinking about that, just what would be one note for you a must present in this perfume?
for this perfume, it would be for the death card, it would be Opoponax, which is like a resin, and it's an interesting sense. I don't really know how to describe it. It's quite earthy, it's quite musky. I think that would suit that card quite well, because if
Mhm.
you're thinking of um, you know, the actual death and the process of putrefaction, etc. Um, you don't want obviously to have something that literally smells like that, because that would just be awful. But if you want to you
Smelling like
can,
you're walking that corpse.
yeah, no, you can actually get the sense of that, you know, but no, I didn't recommend it. Um, but I think Opopanax would be good for it, because it has that sort of, it would embody the idea of rebirth, you know, what comes after rebirth, and the death of ego, the death of fear, and just the rejuvenation, and I think because it has quite a slightly heavy, a slightly sweet smell. It's kind of slightly reminiscent of the smell of death, really, when you walk in the forest, in the woods, and you can sometimes smell
Mm.
that slightly sickly sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just organic matter decomposing, basically. And I think that 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 resin just has a little bit of a hint of that without being, you know, nasty. So that would be a good note for that. I think benzoin, again, because it's rich and earthy, and it would remind you of, you know, when you have a bottle of red wine, or when you make red wine, and you have the sort of dregs of the grapes that have baked in the sun, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of at the bottom of the barrel. It has a little bit of hint of that.
Mm.
So again, you have that idea of decomposing matter, which and it smells nice in an odd kind of way. So that would be another note. Um, I think it could do as well with a little bit of a woody note, so maybe rosemary, because
Mm.
rosemary was burnt in ancient Rome to commemorate the dead. So then you'd have to see if the three marry well together. But that could be a good start, you know?
Oh,
That could be a
I
good
just
start.
it sounds like a music to my ears, because not only do I love dust card, but I love more woody, earthy fragrances
Mm,
versus something sweet and floral.
mm.
When I hear you describe it, I'm just starting to drool and salivate, and of course, selfishly hope you'll do the best perfume. But I
Yeah.
also, respect your process, because to me, you are an artist when it comes to perfumery. From the, like I
Thank
said, from the packaging to the depthfulness, to the thought process that went into this. When we talk about perfumes, and when we consider gender, do you think
Mm.
that perfumes in general, the scent in general, tends to be gender neutral, and it is us culturally that ascribe what smells feminine and masculine? What are your thoughts on that?
Mm. That's a great question, and I'm very happy you asked it. Um, you go online or you go in a shop and you see, obviously everything is very binary. It's scents for women, scents for men, and you look at it closely, and it's mainly the packaging, really. I mean, I've seen some extraordinary things. I've seen bottles for men shaped like a fist, like a closed fist. I thought, okay,
Or
bit
like a
weird.
torso? I've seen where
Or
it's
a
a much
torso,
torso.
or a grenade, a handgun. I thought, seriously, what is this? This is a
I've
toy
seen
shop?
that.
No.
Yeah.
And and the bottles for women, they have like a hint of pink and they have flowers, and it's like, oh, it's like, you know. And I used to wear perfumes for men because I loved the scents that my father used to wear. He used to wear Armani, I think,
Mhm.
and he had something else called Abbey Rouge. I can't remember who it's by, but I used to get little samples and just wear them. I thought, this is great. Why are we not allowed to wear these? So modern perfumery, and I mean modern as in, the 20th century. If you think of Coco Chanel and so on, who really launched perfume as we use them now, as we use perfumes now. Yes, it's complete marketing. It's a complete marketing process. I think what I find interesting, if we want to talk about gender, it's not really gender. It's more about energies. So you can talk about feminine energy or
Yeah.
androgynous energy. That's really exciting to me. Or
Yeah.
masculine energy. I mean, that's what. And again, we're talking about correspondence here. You can, if a certain sense is attributed to a planet or a season, yeah, great. I think in that context, that works. Everything else is a little bit nonsense. I mean, I often link perfumery to cooking. I mean, I cook a cake. It's not, you know, male or female. It's just a cake. It's either you
Mm-hmm.
like it or you don't. That's and
Mm-hmm.
for perfume. I think if we look at it in binary terms, we really miss out, because what if you are a woman and you don't like sweet smells or floral smells? You
Yeah.
want something really punchy, so to speak, something with musk and leathery, smoky notes, and bay rum, whatever.
Yes. That's me too. I mean, I wore men perfume for longest time, where I tried to buy perfumes that marketed unisex, looking for those kind of neither nor notes. But do you think it's possible to really consider more feminine, masculine, or androgynous notes? When you think about those notes, you can't help but consciously immediately marry them to social constructs.
I guess it's quite difficult. I think most people when they go in the physical shop and they buy a scent, they automatically go to the gender that's been assigned to them, you know, the one they identify with. It would be interesting to ask people who are non-binary or who are trans
Mm-hmm.
to say, well, how do you pick a sense and how do you navigate, you know, the whole cultural construct and the marketing ploys, etc., etc. Um, you know, it would be nice to get to a point where we just follow our noses. But
Yeah.
obviously, what the first thing we see is, well, I've said it, is what we see
Yeah.
before what we smell. And I think to some extent, yeah, there will always be a little bit of cultural construct, but if you're aware of it, then you can do something about it, and then it's fine. You know, I mean, the two perfumes I've created, they are not for women, but they are feminine because the artists were women and they identified as women. But feel free to try it and see if it suits you. Um, I have a good friend who has Huit Etoile and he wears it. Um, and one of his colleagues, a woman, she said, "Oh my goodness, I didn't picture you as the kind of man who would wear this kind of perfume." I said, "Well, why not? You know, my friend made it."
Yeah.
But you know, just
Uh-huh.
I think
Yeah.
the more we
Something
go
to think
against the
about for
grain.
all of us. Yeah, something to think for
Mm,
all of us about because we're so caged in this. Just like this friend's friend who said, you know, immediately she saw, or they, I don't know who they are, they picked up on this feminine notes and they thought that you're a man and you're wearing feminine notes.
mm,
So there's this, um,
yeah,
you know, the
yeah.
tensions are immediately, and even the words perfume and cologne are gendered. Um,
I know. And
yeah.
it's funny. It's really funny. I was actually talking to my husband about this and I remember this conversation. This is many, many years ago. I think 15 years ago. So I was sitting next to two men who were older than me and they were talking about the aftershave they were wearing. And somebody said, "Oh well, I just bought this perfume." And the other guy looked at me and said, "Oh God, what are you gay? You're wearing perfume?" And I was like, "Oh my God, you idiot. It's the same thing. You know, whether it's eau de cologne, aftershave, perfume, it's the same
Oh,
thing. The only
fragrance.
difference is the amount of alcohol in it. And that's it." Oh my God. I laughed. I didn't say anything. I thought, oh my God, okay, obviously. And and anyway, you go back to, you know, the kings of France and they were doused in perfume and they called it perfume and
Mhm.
it didn't matter. So
Yeah.
in a way we've regressed somehow. Um, and something that I'm really keen to explore is the traditional use of perfume, which is one of the reasons why
Yeah.
I use oil, is because, you know,
Exactly.
thousands of years ago, perfumes, well, first of all, it was incense. That's where the word perfume comes from, is perfume, however you pronounce it in Latin, is through smoke.
Mm.
It was a way of communicating with the gods. The smoke was elevated and humanity was elevated along with it. And it was a way of reaching, you know, the ether and the gods, etc. And the fragrances were used in for special occasions, funerals quite often, marriages, births, etc.,
Mm.
etc. And then things evolved. Then it became a bit more aromatherapy, sorry, and medicinal. So that's when, you know, the liquid form of the scent was became very, very popular. But it was, you know, aristocrats who used that. They had their own private perfumer, as you
Mm.
do, and they would say, I think it was the Queen of Hungary who made the cologne, the orange water, as it was called then, popular because I think she used it for some sort of ailments that she had. I can't remember if she had like some sort of lung or respiratory problem, but her perfume was used for that. It was used to make you feel better, you know. It wasn't at all glamorous, you know, that came later, but so they're very, I mean, it's a complex thing. It's not just something you put on to, you know, when you go out to and you want to seduce somebody. It's a much richer ritual, I think, and that I'm quite interested in exploring. So,
Yeah, ritual comes to mind because, like I told you earlier, I didn't realize until you and I talked recently that these are oil-based, which is a big difference from most perfumes are alcohol-based, they're not oil-based. So the application of this is different. It obviously lasts, has longevity as a result of it. When I think about oil, I think about ritual because especially in occult practices, people use ritual oils.
yes.
To into objects and whatnot. So and it's also, to me, when I think about oil, is going back to the initial way the perfumes were made. What is your reasoning for bringing this practice back?
Well, I like, do you remember the little bottle I showed you of my
Yes.
grandmother's bottle?
Yeah,
Let me go get it.
that's a great story. Yes. And it's a great story behind that bottle. Yeah, I don't know if you want to share. It's up to you. It's a very personal story, but it's completely up to you if you want to share it
I
publicly.
know it's a very dear object to me, because I never met my grandmother. I didn't have a photo of hers, so this is the only link to her that I have. And you know, when I mentioned making a talismanic perfume for the Carrington deck, this is sort of my talisman. This is the link, you know, between the past and the present for me. And this is something that's encouraged me to experiment with oils, because when I made the alcohol fragrance, I thought, I like it, but there's something, it's too harsh, and it's also very complicated shipping alcohol-based products, you know, worldwide. It's very difficult. And I thought I want something, and also it didn't quite fit my ethos. I wanted something soft and natural and organic. I thought the alcohol really doesn't work really. And I thought, oh my goodness, yes, of course, oil. We used to make oil-based perfumes, so why not try that again? So I did some research, and I picked the oil, which is the one I use every time now, which is jojoba oil. And it's not an oil, actually, it's a wax, but because of the consistency, we call it an oil. The reason why I love this one particularly, I love it a lot, is because it's the closest oil to our skin. That's why it melts so well in the skin. It's also unscented, so there's no clashing with the actual fragrance. And it lasts forever. I mean, years. Unless you leave it to bake in the sun, it will last forever. So that was a bonus point. And it has this beautiful golden color, which I really love. So it made perfect sense to use oils. It's also there's very little risk of allergies with that kind of oil. The alcohol tends to go up your nose, and it kind of sits in the air and goes in your eyes, and people can have really nasty reactions to it. It's not, and it's also not always the alcohol, it's just the spray. The atomizer, some people just can't cope with that. It's again, it just goes up the nose, and it's unpleasant. And I also wanted to get rid of the plastic. I didn't want the spray. I just wanted to get rid of the plastic. So that was another
yeah, there's no
another
plastic
option.
here. And I had this perfume for, I think, almost a year now. Yeah, I use it often, and it's barely because
Yes. You
put it
don't
on
need to do
post
very
note.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, you just put it on post notes, and there's no plastic, so there's the cork at the top. And I love it. It says here, wear me. It
Yeah.
beckons you to wear me, put me on. And it's so sensual. And I think there's something about the oils too versus the alcohol spray perfumes, right? You spray them on, and there's something very mundane, and it removes you from experience. Here, you have to be part of the experience, and you're putting this on your pulse notes. And there's something also about our pulse and our connection to our heart.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I love that. Now, with this is what I want to mention, and I'm going to read this. In your bio on your website, it says, for as far as I can remember, I have struggled to find my place in the world. My question to you, in terms of your personal struggle to find the place in the world, is there a fragrance that takes you to the place of remembrance, even if you don't know exactly what that place is?
Mm. So I can give you two answers for this one. There's an actual perfume, and there's just a smell. The perfume would be the first perfume my father bought me. Is my first grown-up perfume, and it's Laguna by Dali. It's in a funny, funny shaped bottle. It's a mouth with the nose on top, and that perfume I think I will always wear. I wear it. I tend to buy a small bottle on my birthday, and once I finish it, I wait for the next birthday, and I buy a new one, and I wear it on my birthday, and that's about it. So it lasts for a very long time. And my father passed away many years ago, so it's a way of remembering him, and remembering that particular time in my life. When I was 13, which is quite an interesting age, isn't it? And it's also the last birthday I had with him because I moved away. I moved out of the country that particular year. So that's a fragrance that's very dear to me, and that takes me straight back to him. In terms of a completely natural sense, that would be the smell of the earth after it's rained. That always takes me, I wouldn't say it takes me to a place necessarily. It does often take me back to childhood, but not quite. I can't quite put my finger on it. I think it just takes me back to, it's a happy place. It's a comforting place. It's, that feeling when it's been really, really hot and finally the skies open and it rains, and it's that warm rain that we've been waiting, that the plants and the animals and the humans have been waiting because it's been so hot and dry. And then the rain stops, and then all the smells come out of the earth because the earth is full of all these oils from the plants. And it's a distinct smell. You can smell it anywhere. It's the same, really. And you tell people, they know what it is. You can't describe it, but you know what it is.
Yes, that thousand
in your heart.
Yeah.
So that's a particularly poignant and powerful smell. It would be quite difficult to put it in a bottle, but it's one that's quite dear to me for sure. Yeah.
Do you feel like you have a place in the world?
I think I'm getting there. I think so. Identity is such a fundamental thing that I think we can spend our lives looking for it. And I think for me, it started getting easier when I realized that actually who I am is who I've always been. who I was as a child or when I was born. I haven't really changed. I don't think we really do. I think it's easy to get lost. Um, but who we are fundamentally is who we are when we come on this earth, you know. Everything else is just window dressing. And but the important thing is to go on that journey,
Yeah.
because you will meet people and you will discover yourself. You will open new doors. You will probably find completely new rooms behind those closed doors, but they've always been there. It's just a question of finding the right keys and finding the right people who will, you know, make room for you, literally, and not get in the way. And sometimes we get in the way of ourselves, but and when you get to that point, then you're quite settled. Then whoever you are is, you carry it with you wherever you go, and then life becomes a lot easier, I think.
It feels like the fragrance making for you, at least intuitively, what feels to me is that it's a trail that you stepped on that is definitely taking you to some deeper self-discovery.
I
There's
think
something very personal.
the perfume has become the missing link, you
Yeah.
know, what was missing from my life, and it's something that's tied everything together. You know, it's brought my different, um, it's brought my French heritage and my Nigerian heritage together, because it's always difficult when you're from here and there and everywhere to reconcile all these different parts of yourself, your ancestors, your past, your parents, your friends, etc., etc. You know, it's a lot to kind of
Mhm.
carry around with you. The perfume has really brought everything together and puts a ribbon around it quite nicely. So I think this was the missing part for me. And you know, and it's art and it's alchemy and it's my magical practice. It's a business as well, and it's what I will leave behind, probably, you know. And and it's and I've met a lot of people through perfumes. I mean, through only one perfume, to be honest, and it's been quite extraordinary, you know. The exchanges I've had, people who've come out of the blue and have exchanged very personal stories about themselves and their own experience and journey with fragrance. No, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And the best thing for me, I think, is the fact that it's happened completely organically. That's the best part, because that is magic, you know. It's something that's always there. You can't see it, but it carries you. It really does. And it gives sense, you know, to life.
Mhm. Yeah, you strike me as a storyteller, and there is, people tell stories differently. Some people use language to tell stories, some people use art to tell stories visually. You tell stories through the scent. You tell stories through the notes,
Mm,
and I think that's a rare thing in of itself. I have a last question for you.
yes.
Do you have or have you thought? Well, I have actually two questions for you. This question is, have you thought or have you decided to bottle up your husband in a perfume bottle? Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes
Yeah.
we love people that are close to us so much, at least for me. I would very much want to bottle up my husband and his scent and have that with me forever. Have you thought about that, or have you already done that?
You know, it's funny because we joke about it. Sometimes, you know, he's wearing a t-shirt and I kind of sniff him and I say like, Eau de Robert, because his name is Robert. But yeah, I think I will make a perfume that, you know, embodies him. Um, and I have talked about making a scent for Volga for his for the Volga press, because why not? You know, I think that could be really exciting. I've actually started thinking of certain notes, you know,
Ooh.
because it's called Volga. Okay, so I need earthy notes. and I need something that represents, lightning that's striking, and so it needs something slightly electric, in the air. So I'm trying to think about how I can bottle that, but yeah, I will definitely give it a go at some point.
Oh, I
Yeah.
really like that idea.
Mm.
When I think about perfume or fragrance for the press, I think about old bound books, and
Yeah.
that smell. I have a book at home. I have, when we immigrated from Russia, we took some of Russia bound classics with us, and I ended up getting them all from my mom because my sisters not big readers. So I have them in summer, just have that, not only smell of homeland, but childhood and that old printing.
Yeah.
It's such, oh, it's amazing. My last question is, when is the rose perfume is going to be available? Because that one sounds like it just flew off the shelves. Yeah,
It's very different. It's
I
very
think,
different from Huit Étoiles. So there is rose in it. It's lemony. Uh, it's also there's a little bit of floral in there from the frangipani flowers. It's very different. And I'm glad it is, because I didn't want to, have things that just all smell the same. Um, the formula is ready. I've had it mixed and blended and tested, because cosmetics, they have to go through checks and balances. You have to make sure that you have used the right proportions of every single ingredient, because some are banned, some are. It's just how it is, and I have to go through the process twice, because of Brexit. So it has to apply to Europe, it has to apply to the UK. So okay, I've done all that. So the perfume is ready. I am now in the process of changing the packaging. So the packaging will be different to the one you've got.
oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
The reason why is because while the cork, I love the cork, but unfortunately it does pop out in transit, even though I have a little film around it. So it's caused problems. So I've had to change it, and I've changed it to a aluminium screw top, which again is recyclable.
I have it like this.
Yeah. The new bottle looks quite different. I mean, in essence, it's the same thing. It has the heavy bottom, which I quite like, the heavy base, but the rest will be quite different, because I wanted it to be safe, in transit. I don't want it to leak.
Yeah.
And the cork as well, while I really like it, it's not really sustainable, because I did some research on how the cork is harvested, and it takes 30 years for the tree to grow the bark again. I thought, okay, I don't really like that. So
Yeah.
it's great, but no. Again, I want something that is sustainable, recyclable, eco-friendly. So I went with the screed top, which is aluminium. So there will be zero plastic, because the film will not be needed anymore. But I have a logo now. I have a cute logo, which will go on a very cute label, and we'll have a beautiful box made. And so I'm having those. I'm going through, the process with the suppliers to make the samples, etc. So there's a bit more work to be done, but it's nearly ready. Dare I say, it's nearly
I
ready.
can't wait. I can't wait because to me, things such as fragrance are such intimate items. And when it comes to items that are intimate and also ritualistic for me, there has to be a connection about the creator. It has to be something special. And by special, I mean not fancy, but special, really thought out. And it shows how much thought you put into it, how much you really think about the depths of it, how much there's the story behind it, how you also think about the whole environmental effect around it. It's just incredibly thought out process. And for me, I love having the special items from people such as yourself, because it makes it for me that much more special, than having a typically manufactured perfume in a spray bottle that you can get at Sephora. Nothing against that, but if I have those perfumes, they're everyday things, but this for me is it's so special, and it has so much to it. And I think it's rare, and it's I gotta say, it's quite incredible, because I think that there's not many creators who put so much thought and so much integrity. That's the thing, the integrity into what they do. I think today people just are so quick to create and to get it out there and to make money off of it. It's very money driven.
Yeah. No, it's taken a long time, but I wanted to, everything. I wanted the right fonts. I wanted the font that suited the product and me. I wanted the color scheme to match the product and the brand. I didn't have a logo when I launched Rita Toy because it wasn't ready. But I have one now.
Perfect. It's perfect. It doesn't need, that's the thing about this. I feel it doesn't need much at all. It really doesn't.
No, it's true. And the logo, I think you'll like the story behind it, because it's quite simple. And the inspiration behind that is, my husband bought me a book last year, I think, on my birthday, and it's about rural houses in France, houses that don't really exist anymore because they've just collapsed, And what's very interesting about those farmers' houses, really quite simple, quite modest for the most part. So if you look closely, a lot of them have pagan sigils on them. And one that was quite recurring was a symbol. It looks like a solar symbol. And it's a symbol of protection that people had above the door, usually above the door and above the windows, to protect the households, but not just the households, the people that lived in them, in those houses, and also the farm animals. I thought, my goodness, this is perfect. So I took that as inspiration, and we made the logo.
Oh,
it's not a copy, but it's something quite close. And again, it's a very, very old symbol. You can find it in most cultures. I think it's quite recognizable. If you know what you're looking at, you go, I know what that means. And because the brand is called House of Shehu, if you translate it, I thought, well, this is perfect,
I love that.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful connection, especially to the name of your company, House Shehu, my son Shehu, which is House Shehu. It's perfect. You're protecting that, and you're protecting everything that comes with it.
Exactly. Because for me, it's, the home is a very sacred space, and putting on perfume for me is a completely domestic ritual.
Yes.
So it made sense to, the home is your space, it's your nest, it's your safe space. So you protect it however you can.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful connection. And I already was very eager to see when that one available, but I figured on Instagram you probably will let people know on Instagram, because I follow you on Instagram. And
yes, absolutely.
And I will put all of your information below, including the website for my son Shehu, where people can still get this, which is it's incredible. I'm getting a little greedy. I want to get now a second bottle, but I won't. Because I also don't like to have backup things. I like to experience and respect that it came and it went, and respect that and honor that as well.
That's nice.
Aisha, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And
Thank
you
you
for being so incredibly thoughtful and mindful about what you do and how you do it.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Don't hang up.